Welcome to the Sheer Growth podcast. On this episode, we have Melody Bussey of Impact Creative, and she is going to enlighten us on her business and her journey leading up to today. And we're going to talk a little bit more about AI, the challenges in running an agency, but also the things that are exciting for Melody and the growth of her business going into 2026. Melody, thanks for joining me today. Tell me the area that you are. Tell our audience.
I'm actually in North Florida, and I'm about an hour from the Okefenokee Swamp. So if you detect an accent, that's where it's from.
Okefenokee Swamp. I've not heard that before.
It is huge. It's a huge swamp system and very, very gorgeous. I kayak on that as often as I get a chance. It's just the beautiful old Florida with the large cypress trees and the Spanish moss hanging and all of that. Lots of alligators, but they mind their business. I mind my business. We get along.
But tell us a little bit more about you, Impact Creative, and your background.
Well, my background actually started as an educator. I don't know if you knew that. So I was a teacher. And I think, having that background in human potential and what motivates and cutting to the chase of what do they want? What can I do to get them to do this thing? That has really translated well into marketing. But I quickly realized after not too many years in the educational field, and the teachers out there will totally understand what I'm saying, that there became a move toward teaching to the test, the standardized tests, rather than also including the things that you need to learn to be a better human. And it just became very bureaucratic. It wasn't what I felt like I was fulfilling for me. And so I made a move into the world of content creation. And then it has evolved from content creation to graphic design, to website builds, to digital media, branding. So that's kind of where we are now. I saw that a lot of small businesses and creative teams were like pouring energy into content, but they just didn't have a roadmap. They didn't have a blueprint. What we do now is we kind of bridge that gap. We combine like thoughtful brand strategy with really smart digital execution. So our clients aren't just like pumping out tons of content. They're building stronger brands with the content that tells a story that resonates. I think that's kind of the core reason that I got into this, is because I'm a storyteller. I love works of literature. I was an English teacher, so I love writing and I love telling stories, and I understand people. And so it was kind of a natural marriage to go into, this area.
I understand from your background, you talk about writing, but you've contributed to certain magazines and books with your skills. So that must lend itself very well for, the creative side of the social media for your clients. And then ultimately, how did you get into the other side of the businesses, like the website and the SEO? And was that just because you had some clients that were interested in doing that and you kind of upskilled?
Yes, and I had actually in 2001 had written a mystery novel called Crazy Cats, and kind of got my taste there because it was produced by a small press and called Top Publishing out of Texas, Plano, Texas.
Yeah.
And but they didn't have a budget for marketing, so I had to do it myself. And I really, really decided I liked doing that. I really liked everything that revolved around doing that. And as a result, the book went into a reprint about 3 different times. And so it just kind of took off from there. And I thought, well, and I was still teaching at the time. And I thought, wow, these authors, they kind of need some help. I know I did. So that's kind of where that started, was producing content and marketing materials for authors and publishers. And then I started writing for the web. And it was funny because during those days, if you wrote regularly for, the internet, they said, oh, only hacks will write for the internet. That's a fad. That's going to go away. And anybody that's a serious writer will never write for the internet. And I just kind of laughed all the way to the bank because people were paying me really, really well to do these things. So I stayed with content creation. I finally was making more creating content, written content for various clients than I was in the school system. You know, it was just a natural moving into this and away from that. And so I stayed with that for almost 10 years. And then AI came along and I had to pivot. And luckily, I'd already added in graphic design and some of the other website builds and things like that. So it was not as hard a pivot as I think some have had to make, but it's been mostly positive. But it did cut the legs out from underneath the content creation, the written content creation, which is kind of sad. But luckily, I had other things. I already had I diversified, so I had other venues, that could pick up the slack.
Yeah, and you mentioned the AI subject, and we'll touch upon that in a moment. So, with all these pivots and the different offerings that you've got now, what does a typical week look like for you?
Well, no week is the same, although my days are the same. I kind of have a routine that I follow. I work only 4 days a week now. When I first started out, I was doing the 5 days a week and sometimes 6 days a week. And now I have a couple of assistants and one full-time employee and a whole bunch of subcontractors that, I use them, been working with them for 10 plus years. So, but first part of my day is actually getting in, and I actually have my GPT set up to scan for trending topics in various industries. And so when I sit down to have a cup of coffee, I pull that up and I read the trends and see, well, what would be good in social media, or what do people need to know about that? This is kind of cool. So it's kind of an interesting way to start my day, is learning something interesting and new. And then I kind of go into a series of meetings, and then I save my creative time for later in the afternoon. There are still some creative projects that I personally like to take on because I still like having my fingers in that. I'm a creative person. So I think if all I ever did was meeting after meeting and never produced or designed anything, I would be very unhappy. So I make sure that I still keep my fingers in some of the creative projects and definitely in the design of things. And then the evening may be spent before I go home prospecting or following up or checking in with my assistants to make sure they have everything they need. And that's kind of how my day is shaped. But every week has this ebb and this flow to it. So, I may have more meetings on one day. I may have none the next day. I may have one day that's nothing but creative brainstorming, which is so much fun. So I really that's one of the things that I've really loved about the job that I do. And, because you do similar work, it is the flexibility in it. And I love what I do. So I feel very grateful that I'm able, to do what I do.
It's always interesting hearing people's structures, and I always ask this question because I like to understand people's flow and how they start their day. And you starting your day and starting with AI and getting those trends is really interesting, actually. But also doing the creative work in the afternoon. I always find that in the mornings I'm more energetic, so I don't like to do meetings in the morning because I usually find that meetings in the afternoon, they keep me alert. What I tend to do is in the mornings I focus on the money making tasks, the things that are going to be driving revenue for the business, because that's when I be picking up the phone call, doing a follow up email, checking the CRM system. Have I completed all the tasks for the day, and then going into the afternoon. Usually after that lunchtime lull, I need that pick me up from a meeting or a collaboration piece or a bit of creative work. So there are some synergies there, actually, which is really interesting. But as an agency owner, you would have seen a lot of shifts, and you have done, and you've pivoted. So what are the current trends or shifts that you're seeing in your line of work right now?
I think because there have been so many platforms that have cropped up, like Fiverr, Canva, and then, gosh, all of the mushrooms that are popping up in the AI world. There's kind of this race to the bottom where creativity is kind of created like a commodity instead of the craft that it is. And I think we have inadvertently taught clients or prospective clients to view or price or value creativity like a cup of coffee. They value it by the cup and not by the craft that it took to get to that cup of coffee. And I think because they have the easy and quick turnaround and instant gratification that, Canva and Fiverr and other platforms can give, it gives them a false sense of ability. And then so you're seeing a lot of this rise of mediocre content and people claiming to be graphic artists who really are not graphic artists. So I think, that's the core of the problem. Creativity has just kind of been reduced to deliverables and not outcomes. Just because you get a great whatever delivered to you, how does that guarantee an outcome, or how does that predict an outcome? And that, I think that's getting lost in the wash. And I think the more we chase volume, the more we lose value, right?
That's a really interesting point around deliverability. And I think, everyone's trying to do things at pace, especially with social media. Like, people are having to do stories every day or posts every day. And yeah, how do you do that? But I think those that differentiate themselves from the masses are the ones that think more creatively, that partner up with agencies like yours or mine. And I suppose those are the sort of businesses or individuals that we want to work with. How has that affected your business then? If there's potential clients that are now utilizing Canva in their own business. So, Canva's a great tool. I use it myself. Let's say they're using some other tools as well. How has that affected your business and your growth strategy?
Well, and I should say I'm not on the AI hating train. I use AI, but I use it as a tool, and I don't use it as a replacement. In fact, like, for example, the trends every morning, it scours everything and like a good little assistant, gives me all of the interesting trends and topic trends. And I've been training my AI model for a while now. So my AI, whom I named Dennis, because Dennis the Menace.
Love it.
So Dennis provides me with all those lovely trending topics, but then I take those and evolve and write and create what goes on my social media or on the social media for some of my clients. We do a lot of social media management as well. So I think, how it's impacted and how I've made my peace with it is a hybrid structure. And someone said, and I'm sure I'm going to paraphrase it quite incorrectly, that in the future, the agencies that last are going to be the ones who understand how to embrace and harness the power of AI rather than being devoured by it. And that was the gist. I'm sure I'm quoting it completely wrong. But, AI has changed the dynamics of everything,
I always think of AI as that old story when Blockbuster was basically approached by Netflix to go online, and they were like, no, we're going to continue doing what we do, doing the rental DVDs and videos. And Netflix said, well, you either get on board or you'll be swallowed up. You'll go. And look what happened. Blockbuster went under. And that's my same feeling with AI now, is that you either get on board with it and start utilizing it as a tool within your business to help with automation and flow to accelerate your growth. Otherwise, you get left behind. Otherwise, you're going to be outdated.
Yeah, and the irony is AI isn't actually killing creativity at all, really.
No.
I mean, if you think about it, it's exposing who's been doing shallow work all along. Because what AI can't do is think strategically. It can't understand nuances. It can't tell a story that feels human, although there are some models that are getting really, really close. That's when you have to put your editor hat on, become a developmental editor and make it better. Take whatever it spits out and make it better. If anything, it just gives you a springboard, and it's brilliant at brainstorming things with you too. And using it as a creative assistant and not a replacement, drafting and research. But, in the end, the real value is still in that strategy and the human lens that only human beings can apply. So I think the biggest challenge to all this is managing perception, because a lot of clients, the tools like ChatGPT, Midjourney with all its wonky hand issues, and even Canva Magic Studio, looping back to my point earlier, it makes clients think, well, if an AI can do it, why can't you do it faster, or better still, cheaper? So it half the time we're spending our time educating our clients on why that's not true. And so AI doesn't make creativity free. It just moves the work upstream from production to strategy. And that's kind of what's on us to do with clients, and especially new clients. My established clients, they trust me. Some of them I've been with for almost a dozen years or more. We just have this synergy now where, I don't have to sit there and educate. They understand that I know what I'm talking about. That sounds good. Let's do that. Good.
Yeah, and I think that's where we need to evolve as agencies and keep those existing clients, use them as case studies and evolve with them and educate them and implement AI strategies within their creative process. So then when you do get new clients on board, you can say, look, we've had this client for 6 years, we've adopted these strategies, and we're utilizing AI in this manner. And
Yeah.
that brings me on to my next question, really. Like you mentioned about client expectations being around, we want something cheaper because now AI is there and we can do it faster. How are you challenging that? How are you challenging that conversation with maybe a new prospect?
One of the biggest things I would love to get across to those that are listening is you can't build brand consistency when you're hired for one project at a time piecemeal. And I know when you first start out, you kind of do that because, hey, it's money, and sometimes you can use that as a lead magnet and it will springboard onto another project, and then finally a larger multifaceted project. So there is a point in time where you do that, but you can't just build anything on one off all the time. It's kind of like filming a movie, and every new scene that you have has a new director. The consistency won't remain. And I think the trend and the biggest challenge right now with anybody right now with the economy, and it doesn't matter where you are, is profitability. Keeping good creative work sustainable and still affordable so that you position yourself as a partner with them, with a potential client or with a client, and not just a vendor who's pumping out digital products. So like retainers and strategic partnerships and performance linked work even kind of help us focus on the depth instead of that churn, which can burn you out really fast. What we are trying to do is shift from people pleaser mode to partner mode. And that kind of starts with drawing like really clear boundaries around scope and time and value, and involving them in some of the process. That has like really, really helped kind of tighten some of our timeframes and so forth. The biggest challenge has been for those who are afraid of AI, letting them know that you're using AI and why it's not diluting anything. And then also educating them on realistic expectations. With the digital marketing, I have people that will routinely reach out and say, I want to run a campaign for about a month. Well, if it's a social media campaign or if it's even a pay-per-click, you really need 3 months, right? To build up the data, to gain some momentum. And so we're back to the educational part of it. So that part of it doesn't 100% go away, but you get quicker at explaining it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What's working well for you right now?
I think the way, and I think this was inadvertent, but in one of my trending topics the other day, it was talking about hybrid agencies. So lean creative teams that literally are set up a lot like mine, and they use AI intelligently, but keep the storytelling deeply, deeply human. So for us, that means scaling Impact Creative strategically, identifying our strategic partnerships and maintaining and growing those, expanding our content frameworks. We have just added CTV in now, which is going to be huge, and the over-the-top advertising and banner redirects and all of those kind of things. Because think about it, what is the first thing, if somebody's looking for something or they want to buy or they want to know about, what's the first thing they do, right? Pull out a phone and start searching or look it up on the internet. So, if you're a business and you're not visible online, you're in trouble. So, part of where I think trends are heading is that anybody that wants to remain viable is going to have a decent presence on the internet. I just don't think we're going to go to a place where that will never be not necessary. The goal isn't necessarily for us to get bigger, but it is to get smarter and streamline our processes and to protect our creativity, to stay profitable, and make sure the work actually feels meaningful still for both our client and the rest of us who are doing the creative stuff of it. The future of creative work isn't necessarily the volume, right? It's the vision, it's the impact.
And that was nicely done with Impact Creative. So for those that don't understand what CTV is, can you just explain that in a little detail?
It's if you stream any of your media, Netflix, Hulu, any of those, you've seen these ads. So the ads that pop up, the commercials that we all try to fast forward through and you can't fast forward through.
Yeah.
That's what those are. That's the connected TV commercial. And right now, even small businesses can get involved in that for a very low cost of entry. So it really is leveling the playing field because a small to mid-sized business or entrepreneur trying to buy a 30-second spot on cable TV, you better have very deep pockets.
Yeah.
But CTV, it's so greatly reduced. So, depending on what you go for, you can put them out for $50 a day, and there are parameters, obviously, but quite doable. And I think I saw a stat the other day, 80%, this is US based, but 80% of the US households now stream all of their media. They don't use cable television at all.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So I think that's, definitely what CTV is. And it's definitely the future. And that's why I jumped on it as fast as I could. It was a natural evolution for us because we were producing these wonderful product videos for one of our largest clients and then for other clients as well, doing book trailers for authors as well. And so it was a natural move into the CTV arena because we were already kind of producing that kind of thing anyway. So yeah, if you haven't thought about CTV, look into it. It is pretty cool.
Well, I've learned a lot there, so thank you for sharing that. And on the flip side, what's been frustrating for you this year?
I think it's been on social media and especially LinkedIn, but I see some of it also on Facebook and Instagram, the dilution of real connection and conversation, because I can immediately tell when I start scrolling down through something that's been AI generated. I'm like, come on, people. It doesn't take a minute to read back through here. And I'd love to have a shirt that says save the M dash, but right now, that's kind of a dead giveaway for some people. So I just right now, for M dash, I just almost never use it anymore because it's
So
a
obvious.
psychological glitch now. People go, oh, here's an M dash. You must have,
Yeah, it must be AI.
Yeah. So that's been very frustrating. And I think just the ongoing debate about AI is stealing our jobs and it's the end of the world and AI this and AI that. It's Skynet all over again. I just don't see that. I see it just as another tool. Like I said, when the internet first became very prevalent, everybody was saying the same thing about that. And now it's, 3-year-olds know how to get on a computer.
It's evolving for sure. And what metrics are you most focused on improving?
My cash flow would be nice to have those metrics. That's always my
always want more.
metric. I think engagement, impressions. I don't really put a lot of stock by impressions. To me, that's kind of a vanity metric when we're talking about social media. And I think what drives me more are the profile views, because a lot of times if someone views the profile, they're actually doing a deeper dive. They want to know more. I would like to include and increase the number of qualified leads that I get. And that's kind of something I'm working on and I've been doing email marketing for a while, but qualifying the leads a little bit before, because you've done this too probably. You're sitting through meeting after meeting after meeting, and you can tell about 10 or 15 minutes into the meeting that this was not a good fit. They want to talk, and so you're there for like 15 more minutes, and that's 15 more minutes you're not ever getting back. And multiply that by like 5 meetings in a day. So that's the metric I would very much like to improve is more qualified, warm leads as opposed to just cold leads all the time.
I completely understand that. I think that's a challenge for a lot of agencies. So where do you, if we talk about goals now, where do you want to be 6 or 12 months from now?
I am actually in an exit trajectory, believe it or not, because I actually started this business in 2011. So many, many years of building it up. And I've had some nice offers, but I still have about 4 or 5 more years. I really want to just really hone it, really get some operational and processes in place before. And so probably in the next 5 or 6 years, I'm going to sell Impact Creative. And I would love to say go live on an island someplace with, drinks that have little umbrellas in them. But knowing myself, I will probably invest that into another venture of some kind. I really am intrigued with fractional CMO work and real estate investing. And actually, I've been speaking with someone about developing a series of axe throwing venues where you can, you've seen them like
Oh, yeah,
axe
it's a big thing.
throwing and rage rooms where you break the dishes and escape rooms and things like that, because I think we need physical distractions other than just playing video games or watching television. We need places to go to do things. So we'll see if axes are in my future or not.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think as we're on our laptops all day and in front of a screen or watching
Yeah.
Netflix or whatever that may be, there's limiting things to do, which involves having that kind of face-to-face interaction, apart from going to a pub if you're in the UK, or a restaurant, or if you've got good weather like you have, you can go down to the beach, etc. But those activities that can unleash some of the tension, I think is really, really fun. We all need that. We definitely all need that. So, final question then. If you could solve one major challenge today, what would it be?
If I could solve one major challenge, it would be to, at the core base, for anyone who is starting out as an entrepreneur, I would love to solve the Google My Business issue. I think that is such an easy place to go and get connected and get found. And I am finding out that a lot of businesses don't even bother to set up a Google My Business. Now, I'm recently having to reset mine because I rebranded my name from melodybussey.com to Impact Creative Branding. So I've had to redo a lot of that stuff. So that's kind of what's foremost in my mind these days. And I think secondly, the other thing, if I could wave a magic marketing wand, would make marketing, especially digital marketing and branding, more accessible to more businesses. It's possible. There are so many things. I actually just gave a talk to an authors group last month, actually, and it was all about marketing on a shoestring. And it was blowing their minds. I was like, look, there are free versions of all these things, and here's how you do that. Here's how you do that. And so I think that's kind of a little passion project of mine, is to educate people on, you can do an awful lot of marketing without having to put out an awful lot of money. And if you find a good marketing agency that you click with and it seems to get you, you enter into that partnership that I was talking about. And there's this ebb and flow and trust that begins to get built in a relationship. So I think that's the challenge I would really love to see, is everybody having equal opportunity to marketing. Most small businesses don't even have a marketing budget. And that's sad. They think they don't have the money for that, but they really do. They really do.
Yeah, and I think that the education and the strategy with working with an agency is probably the most important part of that, to understand what can and can't be done, and whether they actually are a good fit for your agency, or if they're not, then you could recommend them, a list of 1, 2, 3, which makes it more accessible for them to get that entry level.
Yeah.
It's been really an enlightening conversation, Melody, and I appreciate your time. I could talk for a long, long time with you for sure. So just for the audience to kind of find you, where's best to look for you online, and maybe you could share some of your socials or anything that you're doing at the moment that you'd like to promote.
Well, the website is Impact Creatively instead of Impact Creative. It's Impact Creatively. sheerin.com. And you can see all kinds of portfolio of my work there. And then also on LinkedIn, it's Impact Creative Branding or Melody Bussey. You can find me there quite readily. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm also active on Alignable, which a lot of people don't know about Alignable, but there's about 4 million people that are on that platform. So I encourage everybody to go over there and check it out. It's pretty cool. And as far as, anything that I have to offer, I think it kind of goes back to that Google My Business. Right now, I'm actually offering Google My Business tune-up for businesses. If we have a conversation and you qualify, you could get that tune-up for free. So they need to reach out to me or DM me and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about that GMB profile. And the other is marketing on a shoestring. If you are looking to create a win-win situation, get your marketing on track, start planning now. The pricing is affordable. It can be done. It's not bargain bin, because good work should leave your team or my team holding soup bowls in a soup kitchen. That's it in a nutshell. Those two things especially. Let's get your marketing going. Let's work on a strategy. Get your Google My Business fixed. Come on now. It's not that hard. It's really not.
Melody, thank you again. I've learned so much. We've talked about AI, Google My Business, shoestring budget marketing campaigns. And like always, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and follow. And we will see you on the next episode. My name is James Sheerin, and this is the Sheer Growth Podcast.